This is Christine DeCamp, and I am speaking with Robin Lysne today, and she will be at Art by the Bay Weekend Gallery in Marshall on Sunday, April 27th from 2 to 4 p.m. And she has just published 2 new books, and she will be talking about those 2 books. The Poems for the Lost Deer is one of them, and the other one is the Handbook to Heart Path, an Energy Medicine Guide. Welcome, Robin. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you, Christine. It's great to be here.
It's really, I'm really excited about this because Robin and I shared a passion for an issue out here in West Marin where the National Park was eliminating non-native deer, and that's we both have a heart connection with that.
Yeah.
So would you like to give sort of a background of kind of, you do so many things, you know?
Yeah. Well, doing these 2 books at the same time has been a way for me to bring together a lot of different diverse things that I'm interested in. One is painting, one is drawing. Poetry is a real passion, and then the Heart Path Handbook is an energy medicine guide that helps people take a look at how to love themselves. And they're all interlinked because the issues with the deer out here at Point Reyes really was an issue of the heart. The people loved the deer here. For myself, those deer symbolized the sign that I got from the cosmos that I should be a writer, and I've been a writer for over 25 years, and before that I was acted as a visual artist. But I saw 7 white deer as I came around a hill, and when I was, fasting and praying for 2 days about the deer, not about the deer, but about what I should do as a writer. Should I take writing up as my path? And then looking up and seeing 7 white deer on the hillside, it totally shook me because I didn't even know there were white deer out here. And I had been fasting and walking, and I had seen other deer, and I'd seen the elk, and I had seen, hawks and things. But 7 deer, a white deer in particular, are a sacred symbol in the Native American tradition of peace, of harmony, of affirmation. They hold more light than other animals, and any white animal is considered like a sacred animal to the Native people. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the fact that they hold more light in their fur. And so I was taken with them immediately, and as I was asking the question, the deer lifted their heads and they looked right at me, and then they went back to grazing. And that went through me like an arrow, and I knew then that that's what I should do. So I started in earnest writing more and writing poetry, and then when I entered graduate school, my professor, Stephen Ratcliffe, and I were at a cocktail party with lots of students and teachers, and I said, "So, do you ever see the deer out in Marin, the white deer?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, well, they were all killed." And so after talking about it, I just was shot again, this time with something that went right through me, like, how could they be killed? And he said, "Oh, the National Park Service decided to eliminate them as an invasive species." So I was stunned by that, and it ended up becoming my thesis. He was my major professor, and he lives in Bolinas, and so it became a real quest for me to find out what happened. And as a result, Poems for the Lost Deer was developed, and I've done picture poems in it, and it has many voices, not just my own voice, but I've taken newspaper articles and voices of the people that were part of the protests. I interviewed the hunter. I interviewed a number of people that were part of the protests, and I interviewed the editor of the Point Reyes, both editors of the Point Reyes Light who were involved in the incident, And I had many, many articles from the Point Reyes Light and from the Marine Independent Journal and many other magazines, the newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle. And so many of the words in here are what's called found language from the actual incident. And then my own recollections of deer as a child, how they meant things to me at different stages of my life. All of that's in the book, and also lament for the short-sightedness in our culture. That's really what the book is about. How the patriarchal culture stemming from Judeo-Christian theology basically limits how we can think about nature. And nature is integral to us. So the book really questions the integral, the lack of awareness of that integral part of ourselves as nature. So I get into the native theology, native spirituality, which isn't really a theology, it's a way of life. And it's a way of life integrated with the trees and the rocks as living things, as the animals, as living creatures that we relate to and have a relationship with. And that's how the protesters, many of them thought of the deer. They were part of their life here. They weren't invasive species. A lot of that talk developed after 9/11 because the deer were from Iraq and Iran. There was a lot of political pressure to have the deer eliminated because they were foreign invasives. And this language was used in the articles, so seeing them as exotics and foreign invasives.
Right.
You know, others, the deer, just like we other people of other races or of other cultures. It's the same thing, it's the same philosophy, it's just done with the deer instead of with animals or humans. So I talk a lot about that in the book. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had forgotten about that, you know, where the deer originally came from being an issue in the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big issue, I think, for the superintendent at the time, because the pressure began after he was hired after 9/11. And of course they were eliminated by 2008, so the big extermination occurred in 2007 and 2008.
Right.
And that's when the protests were the highest and people were protesting more actively. And it finally took, you know, letters from congresswomen and senators to stop it. And that's what did stop it. So stop the genocide of these creatures. So.
Right.
And the irony of, you know, the fact that we do this to deer and do this, have done this to people, the Native American people in particular, was quite apparent to even the hunter. There's one of the poems in the book. He actually says that, point blank, that, oh, we did the same thing to the Native people. And he does it kind of off the cuff. You know, we want their land, we just kill them and take it. So that's what was apparent. The very voices I thought would be in opposition to the protests were actually in alignment with them in a very skewed way.
Yeah.
You know, so that was part of the paradox of the whole event.
Well, and there seemed to also be an aspect of him acting out this persona that likes to shock people, and really he plays that up. Yeah.
Well, he adopted the name White Buffalo Incorporated after a Native American saint, White Buffalo Calf Woman, who was the legend of her is that she brought the pipe for the people to live. She brought the ceremonies for people to live in a good way because they were starving. And so that, on top of the legends of what the deer mean to people around the world, not just Native people, but the Japanese have a god who had a companion white deer as a companion. Other cultures, the Celts, have the same legends as the Seneca about the deer, that the deer are sacred and you never kill a white deer.
Right.
So the thing that was so stirring to me was that he named his company that kills animals and species, eliminates species, after a Native American saint who brought things here for people to live. And that paradox I had to put in the book because a lot of people don't know the legend of White Buffalo Calf Woman, and her name is so sacred they hardly talk about her, you know, in the Native community, because she's such a saint. She's such a beautiful soul that came, and I mean, they tell the story of her, but she was prophetically, all pipes that have ever, sacred pipes that are used for prayer, are all connected to her.
Yes.
So in here he is doing the opposite of that, and he's acknowledging his company as somehow helping things live by killing things, and that was a paradox I couldn't let go by.
Yeah, yeah.
So Poems for the Lost Deer really is about our culture as a whole, how we go after people and things that we other, and then we invent, and then we exterminate them, or we eliminate them, or we experiment on them. We've done this from the Nazi invasions to the Tuskegee experiments to African enslavement to eliminating the Native American genocide. And so the deer are just a symbol of another form of relative, that this patriarchal idea that they should be in control of the land and the people, that somehow that's what that patriarchy does. So I've been a little startled and stunned by the depth of this for myself, but it really has global implications all over the world.
Yes, totally. And just everything that's happening with the environment now, and the desire for change that's heating up that I see from people all over the world. Mm-hmm. Everything is kind of coming together.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
Yeah.
So I think this book can help tip the scales a little bit. That's my intention. And that it can also question the policies of the National Park Service that randomly select 50 years, 75, 150 as a date when we're going to bring all the species in the park back to a certain time and eliminate everything else. And that's really false, because as long as you're importing plants, you're going to have seedlings from other companies, from other countries, and you're going to also have animals that are brought in. You can still bring in any kind of animal from anywhere in the world into the United States. So what's that about? Why don't we stop it with the laws first? We can't bring it back to where we were. To me, this is another example of white guilt. We do it out of guilt rather than out of a real desire to see things restored. We're not going to restore it back to where it was.
No, and if we were to restore it, the first thing we'd bring back is the grizzly bear.
Right.
And that's never going to happen.
That's not going to happen, no.
No. It's just, the whole thing is sad to me. Yeah.
I mean, it's all really about predators and being the dominant species. And that's another paradox that's in the book, where the hunter actually brings that up. He brings up the paradox that, well, we are predators and we are the dominant species, so we should be in charge. And my dialogue with him, which was in my head, it wasn't actual vocal dialogue, but what was going on in my head while he was saying that is, humans kill more humans than bears. Why would we eliminate the bears? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. One child that's carelessly put on someone's shoulders, in a park, gets all the sensational headlines when humans are killing humans every day. And you don't have to go very far to find that out. So it doesn't make any sense. The arguments don't make any sense on a heart level. And on a heart level, we should just leave things the way they are and allow for species to be where they are. And I understand some plants push other plants out and so on, and so manage those. But with the animals, they come to stasis. They stop they stop reproducing and they come to a natural balance with with nature around them. So there's really no reason to kill them. There's absolutely no reason. They weren't pushing out the native deer. They didn't even eat the same things. So the idea that they did is a false one, and that bore out in the research.
Well, that was a big issue. One of the reasons that a lot of people out here who supported what the park was doing said that the deer were threatening the native species. But we had a meeting where a woman from the Humane Society came and said there's no way that they could be taking anything. There's so much forage out there.
Right.
It's ridiculous to even use that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 90,000 acres.
Yeah.
You know, they're not pushing the deer out. In fact, the deer were seen to graze with cattle and sheep and other deer. They didn't interbreed. You know, there were many other animals that the deer were compatible with that are also grazing animals, and so it didn't make any sense. And those arguments were totally false. So that was very clear to me in just reading the newspaper articles and looking at the research. So that's in the book as well, you know, talking about what the evidence actually was. I tried to give voice in the same percentage of people pro and against eliminating the deer. So the numbers were about 80% for the deer and 20% against. And so the balance in the book reflects that. The hunter, a few articles talking about, you know, how it's justified. And then I also bring in some corporate, use corporate illustrations to show how they did it and why they did it and how they might have eliminated it. Question number 3 for the park ranger: how are plans developed? Management plans typically include a 3 or 4 prong approach: culling, education, garbage cans, stuff like that. I just work in an office somewhere. The ones with the initiative takes the projects and gets promotions. I just want to keep my job. And then it shows the sterilized deer, this 3 or 4 prong approach with eliminating the exotics by 0-20. And then in the bottom it says get promotion. So the idea that this was some kind of altruistic reason for eliminating the deer is completely false. And it's from the voice of a park ranger.
Right.
Of how it actually works. So,
right.
I think that the ideas that the deer were somehow invasive is erroneous.
Yeah.
So that's the passion of this book for me.
Well, it's a beautiful book, and I can't wait to read the whole thing.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your other book that's coming out at the same time.
Yeah, well, this one is called Path Handbook, an Energy Medicine Guide, and it's for therapists and healers. And the book goes through a process that I was given through meditation and through my own guidance, or my own spiritual guidance, to answer the question, how does love heal all things? How do you love yourself? And what's occurred is that over time I've gotten a meditation based on bodhicitta meditation, which is a Tibetan Buddhist meditation form, to bring things to the outside of your heart center. What I have done is combined archetypes that are basic to our physiology and physiology, all of our physical bodies, right brain, left brain, and taken those archetypes and combined them with this bodhicitta meditation that gives you a place in your heart to go to when you're stressed or challenged, and then to bring the challenged parts to the outside of this heart garden, the heart garden. So we're both returning to the garden of our hearts, and then also acknowledging the aspects that we have and embracing the aspects that we don't like or that we can't seem to reconcile. And what it does is it does many things on a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual level. It can reconcile everything from past lives to childhood abuses, childhood traumas, and it absolutely neutralizes them, and it helps to integrate the energies that are left behind trying to figure out what's going on. My feeling is, and what I experience with clients is, that when you have a trauma, that there's a part of you that stays behind to try to figure it out. What happened?
Okay.
And as we do healing work, as you begin to find that there's disenfranchised parts, when you bring those aspects to the heart and realize how they've been trying to protect you, or how they've been trying to work out whatever happened, whether it's, you know, an innocent thing that occurs, like a child being left behind at church, or you know, and parents forget about the baby and they have to go back and get it, or a broom that's put up when a little baby's, you know, to block animals from coming into a certain thing, that the baby gets traumatized. You don't always know when a child is getting traumatized. It doesn't have to be physical abuse or intentional emotional abuse that traumatizes people. But those incidents can be accumulative and can be like a pulled thread in the fabric of a person. And when you bring those aspects to the garden and heal them, all of a sudden there's a transformation that occurs. People have had weaknesses in legs healed, cancer healed, other kinds of physical diseases healed because they got to the emotional issue that was at the crux of that particular trauma. And the Heart Path Handbook and the Heart Path process is my second attempt to try to show therapists and healers how to actually do that with people.
Wow, that's great. That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's the book. And it also has other information for people about scanning the energy field. I do energetic healing. I'm a medium and an intuitive and psychic, and so in my own work I use my psychic abilities, but these are practical ways that any therapist or healer, even if they don't consider themselves intuitive, it's not my opinion, I think everybody's intuitive, but those that don't think they're intuitive, they could use these sources, these ways, and help themselves and help their clients. And so that's my attempt to answer that question. So,
great.
yeah.
So exciting. Thank you for sharing those with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having this interview. I really appreciate it.
Well, and I just want to reiterate that you will be at Art by the Bay Weekend Gallery Sunday, April 27th from 2 to 4 p.m.
Right.
Oh, and I also wanted to tell people who watch this that they can find your website. It is thecenterforthesoul.com.
Yes, S-O-U-L.
S-O-U-L. And Robin Lysne, it's L-Y-S-N-E is how you spell her last name. So you can also Google her that way.
Yes. Great.
All right.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you. It's been great talking to you.
Okay.